It is my pleasure to introduce to you the Senior Business Analyst from Machine Zone, Mr. Dani ZUNIGA. Dani.
Hello, guys. As Scott said, my name is Dani ZUNIGA, and I'm a Senior Business Analyst. Much more of a math guy than an art guy, so I don't have much for a slideshow here, but I do have a little bit of a game and experiment we're going to play. What I am going to do is I'm going to add a social feature to this talk. So any of you guys that have Twitter accounts, I want you guys to join in on this game. Basically, I'm going to split you up into 3 alliances: the Athenians, the Corinthians, and the Spartans. As Athenians, what you're going to do is you came to the session because you want to make good games. Above all else, the game is the reason. The Corinthians. As Corinthians, you came to this session because you want to make money in games. You understand that without money, there is no game. And as the Spartans, well, you came to the session. I can't really have you start a battle in the ballroom. That might be a little much. So what I want you to do is I want you to start a heated debate. It doesn't matter what you say. It can be positive, negative. Just go on Twitter, find somebody saying something, especially about this session, and just start a debate with them. All right, and here's how we're going to mark you guys. I want you guys to use the hashtag CCSF13, hashtag alliance, and for your whatever alliance you pick, if you're the Athenians, I want you to do hashtag Athens. If you're the Corinthians, hashtag Corinth. And if you're the Spartans, do hashtag Sparta. An example of this would be, this is the best game design session ever. CCSF, hashtag Alliance, hashtag Athens. All right, feel free to tweet during my talk. I believe that even if you get distracted by tweeting, you'll be more engaged with the topic. All right, let's start. I'm going to start at a point 5 years ago. So not too long ago, when you logged into a Facebook game you thoroughly enjoyed playing, you would look at your friends list only to see that a handful of your friends actually played the game. Most of them would be on level 1 or 2, and you would notice their restaurants, farms, and cities were totally unkempt. Your requests for resources would go unnoticed, and even worse, for you, unfilled. You weren't really playing with your friends. You were basically bugging hundreds of people to get meters ahead in a marathon. Why did this happen? Well, as an industry, we would make games that were good at getting players to install the games and give us permissions to post for them. We were using, and some would say abusing, our players' social connections to get players to our games. As developers, we were doing the same thing as their players, but 1,000-fold, bugging millions of people to get a few meters ahead in a marathon. As an industry, we went from making actual social games to making viral games. Really, our games were only social because they were being played on a social network. That was 5 years ago. After that, we forced Facebook to shut down the door on virality, and we all moved to mobile. We heard things like, mobile is where the money is. Retention and monetization is better on mobile. Virality is non-existent on mobile. But just because we can no longer spam wall posts, invites, and notices all over Facebook does not mean we should abandon social features in our games. In fact, I will argue that we need to step up the social features in our games. While old style social features allowed us to get new players to our games, real social features will allow us to engage and retain them. Social features will help you in your short-term engagement during those fleeting moments where your player walks that line between caring enough to come back the next day or leaving as if they never existed. One of the very first mistakes I made in my mobile career was to make a mobile game variant of Set. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of this game, but it's a very thoughtful card game that extremely smart people play. This game was way too complicated for mobile. You couldn't learn it in less than 5 minutes. In fact, the game was not fun until that aha moment, which came really late in the game. So what happened is I effectively had 500 extremely active players out of about 17,000 that I got. This story brought me to think that mobile games should be simple because of how easy it is for your player to just up and leave and play another game. What I really never grasped until working on Game of War was how much players teach other players to play, as long as you give them the avenues and the incentives to do so. So I would argue that your game can be deep and as complicated as you want, as long as you keep your players' attention long enough to make them fall in love with your game. And what better way than to engage your player than to pair them up with experienced players to have them teach the game? The benefits of social engagement do not stop there. Chris earlier was talking a lot about Magic the Gathering. Mark Rosewater, the head designer of Magic the Gathering, said, "Our research has shown that the #1 reason people stop playing Magic is not a dissatisfaction with the game, but rather a change in their social network. They stop playing because they no longer have the time, the money, or other people to play with." If your game allows you to build and maintain a social network within the game, the player will always have friends that play. And better yet, those friends will push them to play. Well, Danny, what about the money thing you just mentioned? Well, I'm glad you asked. We have been noticing that social connections allow paying players to engage non-paying players. Our paying players and other high-level non-payers offer our low-level non-payers protection and valuable items that are just out of their reach. They do this in exchange for allegiance and resource gathering. You see, these large players have to maintain these huge armies. And in order to spend just a little less money, they say, "I will protect you. I will stop this alliance from attacking you. All that you have to do is farm me some silver. You have to get me some ore. Send me this much ore." Here within our game, the players have created a dynamic new social group. This is one of the most powerful and lasting features. This social group transcends the limits of their location, their generation, and their position in society. The benefit of allowing your players to create a new social group within your game is that the social group is rooted within the game itself. Making moves within the social group means engaging with your game. You can strengthen a player's connection to the new social group by allowing to be who they want in the game. Enable them to be the villain, the caretaker, the power monger. Like traditional role-playing games, you are allowing your player to live out a fantasy, but now with the power of social connections to real people with real emotions and real drama. In a sense, you let your players anchor the fantasy that is your game within the real structure of human social structures. All right, now for a little story. During our soft launch, I convinced one of the members of a top 3 alliance to let me in her alliance. I remember being meagerly active in the alliance activities. Really all that I did was send a couple helps here and there, and I was gathering resources, trying to grow my own city in the shadows to become one of the stronger members in the alliance. Then one day, a high-ranking member of the alliance, number 2, sent out a notice to all the alliance members. It basically went like this: if you don't have 100,000 power by Friday or send 15 gifts, you are going to get kicked out of the alliance. I basically brushed off this notice. I was like, okay, whatever, I'll keep playing. I kept doing what I did. Then a few days later, while I was asleep, my phone started vibrating nonstop. And I know, yeah, I'm one of those people that lets their phone wake them up. But after a few messages, I decided to check to see what was going on. Members of my alliance were being kicked out. This went on all night while I was trying to sleep. Imagine what this did to my psyche. To this day, when my phone vibrates in the middle of the night, the first thing I think is, oh my God, I just got kicked out of my alliance. After that, I was a very active member, and boy, did I pay heed to all the alliance members' notices. It was so weird to me that a social group comprised of people that I never met had so much power over me. This was all because my connection to the game, my new persona, was at stake. So you're probably wondering what social features we use at Machine Zone to engage our players. Like a lot of other games, we use gifts and help. But gifts and helps are not really all that innovative. They are just about two of the most used social features in games. We've all seen it. Most games have them. What we did at Machine Zone was added as a core social feature. We added war rallies. In a war rally, a player asks their alliance member to donate troops to an attack they're planning on another player. This is extremely powerful. Weaker players finally have a chance to fight against the stronger players so long as they've been actively engaging with their alliance. If they have enough friends in the alliance, people are willing to send them troops. So, by default, they're engaging with our game. Think about this statement for a second. I can defeat my nemesis, no matter how powerful they are. All I need is to convince everybody to join me. This is the last scene in Three Amigos, Rango, Bug's Life, and countless other movies. This is the kind of drama that sticks with players when they're not playing. Like I said earlier, notifications of alliance members getting kicked out was a very powerful motivator for me. Notifications will hit your players all day. They get notifications with text, emails, Facebook, and other games. We're all good at sending our players notifications. But social notifications, like you are being attacked, so-and-so requests your help, you have a message from your alliance member, make you care. Whoa. You care because there's someone on the other side. In fact, your virtual village is on the other side. You don't want to be an outcast, you want to be the village hero. One of the best ways to lock in social features with reality is to introduce social structures. Having the concept of leaders and ranked members within your game, then giving those ranked special perks adds value to other social features. You want your players calling your players boss, leader, scrub. This will incite power grabs and drama within your game. One of the funnest moments I have in the office is listening to everybody talk about their alliance drama. I'll hear things like, Cindy just started another alliance because Awesome X kicked out his buddy and he couldn't do anything about it. XYZ Alliance just started an alliance war with ABC, even though they're totally going to lose because Demon attacked a low-ranking member while he was gathering food. This has been totally like off-season Game of Thrones for me. Player-to-player communication done right is the most powerful social feature done by far. Our chat is a force multiplier on our other social features and interactions. But you cannot just throw communications into the game and expect it to do its magic. The game has to be fun. The other social interactions have to be there. You can really start to focus on communications after that. Our communications features allow our players to start secret conversations. Sometimes I feel like I'm watching a reality show like Big Brother, when I go between the chat rooms and I see what people say. In the global chat room, they'll say one thing, and in their alliance chat rooms, they'll be like, oh, we're totally going to attack that person. There's straight up some great double crossing. Oh, and one of the coolest things I've ever seen done with social communications is our real-time translation. Talk about a multiplier. A few years ago, a good friend of mine was talking about the woes of doing PvP on mobile. He said there just aren't enough players playing all at once. He said, first you have to take your player base and divide it over the whole day. Then you have to match all your players by skill level at any given moment. After all that, you really only have about 10 to 20 people that can play each other. And they'll get bored when doing that. And sometimes the players can't even find a good opponent. Well, what if your player base was the whole world? I can be up at 11 p.m. chatting with someone on the train to work in France plotting my next alliance move. In fact, I have done this. After that, I went to sleep and woke up to a huge alliance war. My alliance was completely wiped out. That was a bad idea. Translated chat allowed my alliance to never sleep. It also allows our games to keep going all day. But I want to leave you with this. In the end, it's the social interactions that are your game. What most of us consider the game is just a vehicle for the players to play a part in a virtual drama that makes them happy. The game is what they play. The social interactions is why they'll stay, why they'll pay, and why they will keep on playing. Thank you.
On some of the free-to-play games I've monitored, most of the discussion was about the person's health and the health of their close friends, because the game was mainly targeting female players. Mm-hmm. Not the game. There was some drama because such and such forgot to send a social gift, but that was barely 20% of the conversation. Have you seen any of those interactions, like how is your husband, is his food better?
Oh,
things
yeah.
like that, off the...
So that happens a lot. It happens so much. In fact, one of the things that we would do is we were looking at playtime, and then I started looking at actual events that the players were sending, and it was like they would send events to our analytics system for like an hour, and then they would stop, but their playtime would be like 2 or 3 hours, and basically all that they were doing was chatting. And if you go onto our Empire chat, people will talk about anything. I mean, we have people talk about their new jobs. They talk about everything. I think when you get to the chat rooms that people start secretly, or the Alliance chat rooms, you start to get a little bit more like, this is what we're going to do and this is what's going to happen. Most of the chat that goes on in the bigger world is threats and, how are you doing? And hello, good morning, everybody. I'm from New Zealand, or hello from France, and things like that. It's the chat room really keeps people active while they're waiting for any timer, while they're waiting for an Alliance member to do something. The chat room is really, really engaging. And I think it really is because they can do anything with it. Like with communications, your players can do anything. They don't have to talk about the game. Most of the people that communicate with me talk about the game, and that's probably because I really like the game and I just talk about the game and I'm kind of trying to do cool stuff in the game, but I definitely see that in chat, and some of our other people see it in the emails. Yeah. Second question? Yeah, go ahead.
Have you been able to compare different games based on how large the group has to be? For instance, World of Warcraft doesn't really have a maximum league. I don't know if your game has.
Yeah, so we have some ideas on how large our game has to be in order to facilitate all those social interactions. I don't think I can give you the exact numbers. Somewhere in the thousands of concurrent users is pretty good. You don't need it to be super duper high. One of the things that I keep pushing for in my company is that we try to get people into active alliances. I've been consistently seeing numbers that show that if somebody drops into an active alliance, that they will come back the next day. I mean, there's other things that will give you like a good retention rate for D1, but if they go into an alliance that's just chatting, that's sending helps, they really like the game.
So Danny, other than having international chat and the ability to have chat rooms, are there any other chat-related or social features that we can add that we might not be thinking of, obviously?
Yeah, so one of the ones that we have is we have email. And email is pretty good. I think what it is it really comes down to communications, and you have to step down these communications somehow. Chat is kind of like this thing you're doing right away. What I've noticed people do in emails, they'll send stuff. That's what I talked about. Notice from my alliance was basically my alliance sent the whole alliance an email. Comments work really good. Just giving players kind of the 3 different ways to communicate with people. Chat is very instantaneous. Comment is kind of like putting something on somebody's board. On our comments, we get a lot of things where people say your alliance sucks, or this person did this to me, I'm going to attack your alliance. It's kind of like a threat board, or like a how awesome are we board, or just it's a place for people to interact between alliances. So chat, very instantaneous. Email is kind of used between the alliances. We use the email feature also to just tell players what new features we have. So they engage with that because they're engaging with other players.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?